Well, hello and welcome back. Today we are speaking with Steve Matley. He's a business analyst and advisor, works in construction development as an expert and an educator. He's the president of the Inland Valley Business Community Foundation and a talk show host and speaker from San Diego, California. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Good, Matt. Glad to be with you. Welcome back from overseas and on your trips and everywhere you've been.
Thanks. Well, Steve, I was just wondering if I appreciate your time tonight. I know it's valuable, and I was just wondering if you'd tell us a little bit more about your background and history.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, I've had a lot of different things I've done, fairly diverse. I'm a serial entrepreneur, fairly accomplished in the development and construction management world. I'm a little bit unconventional on the business analysis and advisor side, and I'm also an accidental educator, a reluctant nonprofit leader, but also I'm recently a very unlikely fashion and entertainment producer. I produce a fashion week for the city of Temecula, a series of shows, and I've done a reality television pilot that's currently in post-production, and I've produced comedy showcases also for a charity. So very wide, diverse, and quite disconnected background.
Yeah, it's quite a few things going on. It's quite a few things to manage. That's why it's very interesting, and I think that you have a lot of value to add to people, and be able to help a lot of people in many different areas.
And it's a lot of fun. Nothing's ever boring. There's always great things to do, a lot of people to meet and to get to know, and everything leads towards somehow, some way helping other people.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And that's as you know, that's part of what this is about. Is talking to people about what they do out here in the civilian world, and it's just going to be working for people that coming out of the military or even transitioning in the civilian world, from one area to another area where they may want to, do something new. So it sounds like that's something that you have a lot of experience with, is trying new things and chasing something that you have a passion for.
Yes, I am an expert at trying different things that are new and scary, but all of it fits within my overall purpose. That's the key.
All right. Okay. And so if you're ever just talking to somebody, you just meet them on the street, or you're, maybe in a bus station, or, maybe just at a coffee shop, and they ask what you do, how do you tell them what you do? Or what do you say that you do? Or what are you? Do you give them that whole spiel, or you have one?
I get the question a lot, Matt, because that's one of the first things that we ask of each other when we first meet. It helps us figure out how to categorize each other, where to fit each other into what we know, and helps us determine what we have in common with one another and how we should relate to each other. So I've learned that if you give a person a simple answer, it kills the conversation right away. So, for example, if I say I'm a business consultant, they immediately compare it to what they already know about consultants, and I'm now in that box. Right. If I say I'm a college professor, they put me into a different box, but that's the box in which I will forever be stuck for that person. Or if I say I had a career in construction management, now I'm the guy in loose-fitting jeans with steel-toed boots using a porta potty and whistling at women that go by. And that's just what their thinking is. So when they ask me, what do you do, I usually answer pretty much anything I want to. How about you? And what that does, it's true for one thing. It also leads them to asking for clarification, since there's no box in their head that they can fit me into. So, but first they also have to answer my question with their position and what they do. So once that's gone on, now we're in a conversation, because now they're curious, and now they ask questions, and I can start explaining some of what I do and what I've done, and about my diverse background. And that usually is different for most people. Most people tend to specialize in one certain area for most of their lives, and that's what they do. They're, say, a mechanical engineer, or they're a cupcake baker, or they're a hair clipper, or something like that they've specialized in. And so I can talk to them and actually throw a lot of humor in about how I landed in some of these unrelated fields, because the truth is a lot of what I did wasn't planned. It just sort of came about. There's opportunities. I'm a big fan of seizing opportunities if they fit your purpose. And so that conversation lets me learn more about them beyond their specific job. I want to know more about their title, their company. I want to know more about them. It helps me to understand why they do what they do. And so when we can get past their title and their job and get to who they really are, not their what, but their why and their how, and then we have a better conversation. So that's the long answer to how I usually answer that question, and it is specifically to lead to a conversation, because everybody's unique. Everybody's a unique person, and they happen to perform specific services as part of providing for themselves and their families, but I want to know more about them.
Right. Yeah, I understand. A lot of people identify themselves with what they do, like you said, and we find that a lot in the military too. People identify to their rank or to their position in the military, and like John Maxwell talks about positional leadership. Number 1 through 5, and some people come in at a 1 and they grow to be 3 or 4, and some people like that positional leadership and they stay there and they base everything on that position.
And
that's an interesting way to put that. Yeah.
And that's not who they are. That just happens to be the position they hold.
That's
so
right,
there's a lot more to a person than that. So, and the military and actually a lot of government, the private sector government work tends to go by titles. I remember I did a lot of consulting for government agencies doing construction management. And I never had a title on my business card because depending what I was doing for different agencies or different companies, I would be a different title. I'd be a project manager level 3. I'd be a senior project manager. I'd be a project engineer. I'd be whatever that contract required is what I would do. And they needed to know my title so they know how to treat me. They needed to know if I was above them or below them or lateral to them. They needed to know which box to put me in so they know how to relate to me, because that's their world. Everything's about titles and job codes.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting how you put that, and then it leads to the conversation, which could also lead to more about how you can probably help somebody else.
And that's the key is finding out what can we do for each other. How can we collaborate and work together?
Great. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Talking a little bit about leadership. I know that something that I didn't mention in the introduction there, I know you may have talked about it there, was building solid foundations, one of the companies that you own.
Yes.
And that deals with leadership. And so I was wondering if you have any favorite leadership lessons or stories or any kind of, leadership quotes, something that you are kind of driven by or something that pulls you into that leadership world if you were to just do an impromptu speech or a lesson on leadership.
Well, that's actually what we were just talking about. My biggest lesson I ever got out of leadership is that true leadership is not about a position or where you fit in an organization chart. Again, that's your title. That's what you do. That's not who you are. Contrary to popular belief and catchy quotes, also, not everyone is cut out to be a leader. I know there's famous quotes that says everybody will be called on to lead at some point in time and those type of things. That sounds good on a motivational poster, but I don't know that it's true. The same reason, leadership skills can definitely be taught, but then so can musical skills. So if you ever watch the first few rounds of American Idol or The Voice, it's pretty readily apparent that people with a strong passion and desire for music, and even with some talent, they're not really cut out to be musical superstars. We find that out right away. They may be able to derive some happiness from it and maybe enrich their local community or family with it, but they're not going to become rich and famous through it or make a living at it. And similarly, there's some people that can successfully learn some leadership skills, and they can lead as, scout leaders, church leaders, lead their families, but they're really not right in their temperament and way they're built and the way they're wired. They're really not right to lead large, complex organizations because high-level leadership is very demanding. It's lonely. It's exhausting. And it's about serving those you lead. It's not about being in charge. And if it's within your purpose and your calling and you're constantly learning and improving and working and getting better at it, it's very fulfilling because it works in your purpose. But if not, it's just plain frustrating for both the leader and everybody that's working under them. So those are the two biggest lessons that I learned is first, it's not about your position or your organization. I know John Maxwell writes a lot about that. And I learned that from experience. And the second thing is that not everybody is cut out to step into a role of a highly visible leader.
Okay. So that leader, somebody that's out there out in front, because I know sometimes leaders can lead from the back too. They don't want to take credit for what they're doing, but then there's other leaders that have to be out in front and lead from the front because of what kind of projects they might be working on. Is that kind of what you mean?
Well, the thing is, even leading from the rear, you're still the most visible person around. There's that leading from the rear is it's an interesting picture because you're trying to stay behind the scenes, and that's what I do with the nonprofit group. I'm not the face of the nonprofit group, even though I'm the president of it. There's another person, the original founder of the group, that is the face of the group and really the visible part of it. But no matter how much I try to stay behind the scenes, I'm constantly being shoved into the front because I am, in fact, the president of the organization. And people want to see and know and hear from the person who is running the show. Eventually, they want to know who this person is and have a human connection with them. And so you are now thrust. And no matter which direction you're leading from, you can find yourself in very, very lonely positions. And you are out there all alone sometimes because ultimately that's where the buck stops. Everything ultimately comes onto you, and you have to accept the full responsibility for it, no matter how far back behind the curtain you want to try to stay. It just doesn't work that way.
Great, thank you. And so you mentioned a little bit about the nonprofit. We talked about building solid foundations, and then construction, business analysts, and all these things you do. Well, I was wondering what kind of projects that you have right now, or maybe that you're working on that you might tell us about, or if you can't, I understand that too.
Oh, no, I can. I've got things I'm working on. So I mentioned there's a few things. One is I'm currently working on a TV show pilot. It's centered around the best and the brightest female real estate agents in Orange County, LA, San Diego, Riverside County. And it's in post-production right now. It's being shot to various networks and distribution outlets as we speak. So that's something I'm working on. That is, again, something I got into a little bit by accident. That was a person I've worked with many years. She is a business associate and a partner in some past enterprises with me, and also a client. And we were working on her business, which is marketing real estate agents, and she asked me about the possibility of using a reality TV show as a mechanism to help her to market the ladies that work with her. And, my thing is, sure, we can do that. So I formed it and put it together, basically structured it the way I used to structure my speculative land deal. And we brought in a pool of investors that believed in the project and casted it. And we hired a professional production crew out of one of the major network and studios and had it done. And so now it's in post-production. Another thing I'm working on, because you mentioned the nonprofit, and we have a fundraiser we do every year. Our primary fundraiser that we started several years ago was a fashion show. It started off as a local fashion show. It became a regional fashion show where we actually bring in professional designers, professional models. We have top-notch entertainment talent, and the city of Temecula picked it up as one of their 5 signature events they do annually. So now they're one of the major sponsors along with the local visitors bureau. So that it's in the spring every year, but we're already deep into the planning stages for this year because we have a series of events to do within a week during May coming up. And so we're already in the process with that. Another project I'm working on, very personal to me, is I'm completing one of my books. I have a book on strong negotiating skills. That's a seminar that I put together, and I've done some workshops on that. And it's just a 6-step method for effective negotiating. So I'm finishing that book up. I'm hoping to get that into publication by the winter of this year. And I have another book I'm co-authoring, and this one actually ties to that TV show I talked about. This is a book that I'm co-authoring with the founder of that organization on what defines what the finest women in real estate are, what makes someone the finest in their business. So, and of course I continue to rework and add to my keynote speeches and my internet video series and the educational lectures. That's an ongoing effort.
Wow.
So a lot on the plate.
Yeah, lots of plate spinning. Very nice. And that's very interesting. A lot of stuff going on there. So with all that going on and all different types of businesses you've built, projects that you've put together in events, is there anything that you wish you knew before you started any of these? Maybe back, I don't know how long ago you started, but is there anything you wish you knew then before you started?
Well, of course, we always wish we could set the time machine back and go back knowing what, then what we knew now. I wish that I knew all the lessons that I eventually had to learn through all my mistakes and errors and the failures. Failures are not just my part, but other people I work with too, because when you're working in anything where you're working with other people, and a business is never a solo venture, no matter, even if it's sole proprietorship, you always rely on other people. And so you're subject to their failures as well, and their successes. So I wish I knew all those things back then. Of course, there's no way to avoid that, to some degree. Fortunately, I did avoid many of the most common business mistakes people make that are trying to be entrepreneurs, because most entrepreneurs are really good at their trade. They're good at what they do, but they don't have a business background. These are not people that learned business or came up in a business. They're just people with ideas that are really, really good at what they do. And so I ended up missing a lot of those mistakes, not making those because I had, in fact, completed advanced degrees in business. Now, a business degree certainly doesn't guarantee success in business, and there's a lot more to know about a business than any degree program could ever cover, but it's assuredly better than not knowing anything about business going in. So, the thing about the formal education is it does give you basic theory, best practices, case history. You can learn from that. It's accumulation of everybody else's mistakes that you're learning from. So having said that, though, about 80% of what I learned that led to my success didn't come from any of the 3 colleges or universities I attended. It came by way of the degree I earned from the School of Hard Knocks. That was the most valuable degree I ever got. But it could have been more painful if I didn't have the formal education to go with it. So I actually have a lot more self-education than formal education, but both have proved invaluable. And I will say this, because I know people out there that are on the entrepreneurial side, and they really kind of diss the formal education side. It's a waste of money. You can't get a job. And I think that's true. If you want to go into business hanging drywall, don't get a bachelor's degree in 15th century French literature. That's not going to help you. But you could go to a trade school, and that's not a university degree, but trade schools are good too. I've worked in a plumbing trade school, and I tell you, those guys coming out of there make good money too. But the formal degrees, just having them in my possession opened many doors of opportunity that would not have existed otherwise, simply because the box was checked that I did have a degree, and therefore I had the opportunity to do it. And it doesn't really matter how much you know or your level of experience. If you don't qualify for the opportunity, you don't get to use it. On the other hand, I also learned that the experts are often the last people you want to listen to, because sometimes people get the formal education, and now they think they know everything, but they've never actually done anything. So
they never did it.
The theory and the best practices, it has to fit your specific business, your client base, your local culture, your core values. And sometimes the generally accepted business practices are not beneficial to a specific company or situation, or maybe they could even be detrimental if they don't fit. So there's a balance of that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And sometimes just those degrees and stuff, I guess, they show that you're willing to put in the work too, and maybe that's how that opens up some of those doors, and shows that you are willing to add value to yourself, which in turn will probably add value to others.
Right. So, and a lot of my background involves project-based businesses, construction management, development, those type of things. And the fact that somebody finishes a degree program, that itself is a project. That tells me they can manage a project made up of multiple parts and pieces and successfully complete it and do what's required. So that right there, I know they can successfully manage a project. So that helps.
Okay. Well, what I'm working with transitioning military members mostly, and usually they've been in anywhere from 4 to 20 years, just depending on where they're at. And if they were looking at you and asking you for advice about doing what you do, let's just say basic project management or even event planning, do you have any advice that you would give them coming out of the military? To do like project management or even entrepreneurship, whichever one you wanted to choose.
Honestly, it all kind of ties to project management, because putting events together, that's a project. Doing a entertainment production, that's a project. Putting a building up, that's a project. So they're all kind of project-based, and that's sort of where my mind goes. But the main thing is to do the hard work of planning your career or your business to fit you and to fit your product or service and to fit your values. The main thing, they need to know without a doubt who they are, what their business is and what it's about, and why they exist. What's the purpose? And then clearly define non-negotiable core values, those things that the things that you're not going to do and the things you're always going to do, no matter what industry you end up in, and map a specific vision for where they're going. And that sounds kind of a little out there. It's an exercise that I think everybody needs to do individually for themselves, and then when they get in a company, it's easy to find where they fit. Once that's in place, decisions are really easy and really fast. You make a lot less mistakes. You don't waste time agonizing over decisions or wondering about different opportunities. You look at the options. You compare them to your purpose, your values, and your vision. If they fit, it's a go, and if not, you decline it. And so the hard work is figure out who you are and how you fit. So the second piece of that puzzle is, so let's say you figure out what you like, what you're good at, what you want to do, your gifts or your talents, your experience, your education, the temperament you have. You get all this kind of figured out, and you figure, okay, I think this is what I want to do. You got to now prepare yourself for whatever it is that you decide to do. Read the books, watch the videos, take the courses, get the degrees, get the certificates, get the licenses if that's required, whatever's needed. Ask lots of stupid questions of anybody with the expertise that'll stand still long enough to let you ask them. Remain humble and teachable. If you think you know, you probably only know enough to think you know it. But if you don't know enough to know that you don't know everything about it, then you gotta assess that and see where you really are. I've worked with a lot of people that sometimes it's because they went to a highly ranked school and they think they've got the degree and therefore they're good to go. Sometimes they grew up doing a certain trade and they've been doing it longer than their supervisor's been alive or whatever, and they think they know everything. And the problem is they don't. You can always learn things. The worst position to be in is I already know that. That's not the way we've always done it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's a bad attitude to get into. So you got to stay open, stay humble, always learn, always read, always improve, because the world changes. And then check your risk tolerance. Are you willing to put your family in a position of insecurity if you're deciding to start your own business? Because that's what's necessary.
For sure.
Are you willing to lose what you invest in starting it and more? Do you have thick skin? People are going to turn on you. People are going to say things about you. People will accuse you of things sometimes. People will sue you over nothing because they think you have something to get. Are you prepared to turn down lucrative opportunities because they violate your values? Are you in it for only the financial gain, or does it fit your actual purpose? How does it affect the time with your family, where you're going to live, how often you may need to relocate? You've got to ask yourself all those hard questions as you figure out. So you got to look at, first of all, who you are, what fits, and then when you pick something you want to do, analyze that, evaluate it carefully, and ask yourself the questions. Where am I in 10 years down this path? Am I ready to do this? Is this what I want to do? The good news is, and that sounds like I'm discouraging you, but the good news is,
no, that's good.
When all those questions line up right, instead of being scary, it's exciting. It's because you're doing what you're supposed to do. You know what you're doing, what you're built to do. And let me tell you what, if every Monday morning you get up and you're excited about going to what you do instead of having that knot in your stomach and dreading it, you're in a good place.
You've done your homework and know, kind of done the homework and know exactly, like you said, know who you are, know what you want to do with your life. Then it's, they say if you love what you do, then you never work a day, right?
That's right. And you got to know your temperament. So for me, for example, I was really, really good at accounting. I did excellent at accounting. If I did that every day for a living, I would have shot myself years ago. I cannot sit in a cubicle doing that stuff, sitting on a computer, pushing pencils. I can't do it. Even in the construction field, I can do estimating and scheduling very, very well as a project manager. I cannot do it as like a chief estimator or a scheduling expert, because then all you're doing is sitting in the office doing that. And I got way too much ADD to do that. I like being in the field. I like being out and around. I like moving things. I like challenge. I like change of scenery. And so for me, doing the project management side, I had multiple projects. I'd go to different sites. I was traveling different places, and I did a little of everything. I did estimating, I did scheduling, I did contract management, I did contract creation, I did meetings, I did negotiations, I did expert witness work, I did litigation support, all kinds of stuff. And for me, that fit my temperament.
Yeah, very nice. And that makes it funny, because my next question is, do you have any daily routines? And so that's, as I'm listening to you talk about that, I just wonder if there is a daily routine for you, or do you just kind of go and figure out what you need to do and then do it different each day? I don't know.
Well, there's a little bit of a conundrum there, because I'm I'm not a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person, although it would look like that on the surface. I'm actually very deep into planning. And so the answer to do I have a daily routine is yes and no. I have a daily routine that involves preparing, working through the task, going to meetings, doing evaluation, always every day some type of self-education, some type of physical activity. But the specific order changes from day to day. It's not a rigid where I do this at 7 in the morning and this at 8 in the morning and this at 10 in the morning. And, it's not like that. Because the day changes. And when you're working in someplace outside of the punch-the-clock world of business, and you're working for yourself, your schedule has to be very flexible. And, again, that goes with your temperament. Can you roll with the punches? Can you make changes on the fly? It can be frustrating sometimes when your plans change. So I have a routine where before I go to bed, I usually check my calendar for the next day, my to-do list, so I kind of know ahead of time where I got to be and what I got to do. I'm prepared. But the specific order of the task can change from day to day. Because I may have morning meetings, I may have afternoon meetings, I may have evening events to go to. But every day I like to start my day because I've checked the calendar before I went to bed. I kind of know what I have to do. But I like to start my day with reading. I always have a few books in the works. I have usually a nonfiction book that's like learning or professional development. I'll have like a fiction book going that's for enjoyment, exercise the imagination, and something that's maybe more inspirational. But the first book I try to read is at least one chapter out of the Bible to start things off. That kind of sets things for the day, and that kind of goes back to, ultimately I don't even wake up or take a breath without the grace of God. So that's there. But then I'll read some other things. And then different days have different meeting schedules. Maybe the physical activity will change. So I try to do something every day. Some days I'm in the gym in the evening. Some days I have a tennis partner I play with. Sometimes I go for a run. Sometimes I'll go for a hike in the morning. Sometimes I go on a bike ride. So I like to mix it up, and I'm okay being flexible. So if I plan, let's say, to do a bike ride and it starts raining, I'm okay going to the gym. I can do that instead. I schedule my working time, try to take a block of time where I try to shut other things out, and that's when I write my blogs, I do parts of a book, respond to emails, I prep lessons for the college, work on my speeches, record videos, post to social media, all those type of things. And I found that John Richardson's, John Richardson, he has a 15-minute system where you try to block things out for like 15 minutes and just focus on something for that amount of time. Do that, and then in that 10-minute remaining of the hour, that's you take your break, you relax, you decide if you're going back for another 50-minute session or doing something different. And so sometimes you do 2 or 3 of those back to back and get a lot of stuff done office-wise. Other times, if it's a day that you go, then maybe that's towards the end of the evening after a full day has gone by. And then I try to end the day again reviewing my calendar, my to-do list, recording any notes from the day's activities, get prepared for the next day. And like I said, I like to make really clear, detailed plans, but I hold them with a very open hand because I always want to allow for consideration of unexpected opportunities. That's how a lot of these crazy things that I've done have come up, because the opportunities presented themselves. And if I had stuck with a rigid plan, I never would have done something.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can see that. That's very interesting. So that's what works for you, and that's kind of why I asked that question, because everybody has different routines. Some people need that rigid routine in order for them to be productive and successful for themselves. So,
and the military type people tend to like a fairly rigid routine. They're up every time at the same day, and they start by I do this exercise to get started with, and I take my shower, and I eat my breakfast, and and they go through their day, and everything's like right on the money. It's never 30 seconds ahead or 30 seconds behind. And my dad was like that, because my dad he'd been a Navy fighter pilot, so he during the Korean War, and he left the military, but the military never left him and his soul. So he raised us like we were in a boot camp. And he was very, very punctual, and his plans were his plans, and they were set in concrete, and God forbid anything get in the way of those plans, because that was his style. And it worked for him, because he worked for a state agency, and that was kind of the way they worked. So
kept going that way.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And so you talked about books in the morning, and I was going to ask you, what books do you gift or suggest the most to people if they were to ask you about that?
Okay. I have really 2 different categories of books that I tend to lean towards. I read a lot of it. I read everything in the world. I read, product labels. If there's nothing else to read, I just like to read stuff. But the two groups of books I tend to gravitate towards are like professional development type books. So you got to think of things like John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar and Og Mandino and those type of books.
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie. And then the other group of books are like the classic literature. It's all those books. Think about all those books that you were supposed to read in high school and college, but you could do the clip notes instead, right?
Yeah.
And what I learned is that years after I finished school, I realized that everybody who did that, including myself, really cheated themselves. They really cheated themselves out of great stories. There's a reason those are classic pieces of literature. Now, granted, some of them are a little hard to get into because when they were written was several hundred years ago and the language has changed, or maybe they were translated from a different language hundreds of years ago. But I learned that whoever read the books and then prepared the cliff notes totally missed most of the themes of those books. They totally got it wrong. And so I realized that reading it for myself, I found where the real depth of the story was and where the characters were and what the message of and the themes of the authors were. And they're really fantastic stories. So that's for my kind of preferences. When I'm getting gifts, I tend to try to find books that reflect the specific interest of whomever is receiving the book. So example, for my mom, if I get her books, they tend to be books that are based on the art world, and she also likes mystery kind of books, kind of macabre mystery type of stuff. But she's an artist, and so sometimes I try to find books that tie the two together. Maybe it's some kind of a detective mystery involving an art theft or something. So and so she'll kind of enjoy that. So it's something that fits whoever that person is.
Okay.
For first, recommendations, I teach a class at the college. It's on leadership theory. And I have a list of 200 books that are all leadership and management related books. What I consider 200 of the best books out there. And the students are free to pick books off that are not on that list as long as they can show me that it's a leadership or management based book. And that's why, because that's kind of what I'm recommending. And I require during that term they read at least 3 of those books and give a full report on them.
Oh, wow.
So. Unfortunately for me, though, shopping for books is a real problem because it swallows up a lot more time than I originally planned, and I tend to bring more books home for myself than I do for whoever's supposed to be getting the gift. So I kind of get lost in bookstores, and I still prefer it to the online shopping because you just like to walk up and down the aisles and see what's there.
Yeah, there's so much out there, and I go to the library sometimes, and I go to get one book. And I come back with a handful of books. I happen to go through the wrong section at the right time. The thing I found with libraries is that they got that limit. If you check the books out, you got to get it back in a certain amount of time. And I actually will buy books. What I do with the library is I'll go to where they have the bookstore at the library. They have the fundraiser bookstore where they raise funds for the Friends of the Library. And I can find books there for 50 cents or $1 or whatever. And the great thing about that is if you buy them, you can put them on a shelf. And sometimes I'll get to a book 6 or 9 months after I bought it. Because it's like in the queue waiting. And I don't have any worry about renewing it or returning it or getting fined or any of that kind of stuff. So the library is great, but I like actually having my own books. And then the nice thing is when I'm done, I can always turn them back over to them and I can sell them again to someone else. Yeah, somebody else can buy it, help them keep that
if I want to
raised.
Get rid of it. Although I find more often than not, I kind of get greedy with my books and I don't want to give them back.
Yeah, I understand that too. All right. Well, I got 2 more questions, and these kind of off the wall kind of questions, but just some things I'm looking at with people and words. I want to find out more about the word try. Everybody that I ask has a different thought about what the word try means, and so I'm just going to be interested in what you think. If I say the word try to you, and you can base it off of anything because it's just a general question, open-ended. What does that word try mean to you?
It's got multiple meanings. In one sense, it's worth either 1 or 2 points, depending whether it was a kick or a run after a touchdown. But that's from my football officiating background. I used to officiate high school football. But no, actually, I have a talk I did on that word try. It was what it was based on. It's one of the talks I did at the San Diego Fair. And what it's really built on is that one of the single worst pieces of advice I've ever heard, and it's bandied about as gospel truth by a lot of people, and it's that phrase, the famous phrase, do or do not, there is no try. You're familiar with that, right?
Yes.
I think everybody is, that hasn't been living in a bubble for the last 30 years. So personally, I don't look to fictional sci-fi characters represented by small wrinkled green Muppets for my life advice. Looking for something a little more substantial. And I think through what that means. And if one follows that particular gym of advice, there's only two choices. You either do something and do it successfully, or you don't do anything so you can avoid the failure. That's the only option it gives you. And that makes people tend to only attempt that at which they are virtually guaranteed to succeed, where they have a very high probability of succeeding. But history is replete with examples of people who succeeded only after they repeatedly tried and failed. Well, how many times did Thomas Edison fail at the light bulb? Or they became good at something, they would never become good at something that they wouldn't even attempt it if they were expected only to succeed at it. A lot of people have succeeded wildly at something that they never would have thought of, including myself, to be honest with you. I have so many things I've done. Okay, so I mentioned that I put this fashion show together. You do know me. You've met me. You've seen the way I dress. Do I look like somebody that should be in charge of a fashion show? Absolutely not. I have no sense of fashion, no sense of style, no sense of glamour. I'm not, I have a face made for radio, but that's, just the way it is. So I encourage my kids to try many things so they can determine what they might enjoy and be good at, or what they would choose to work towards becoming good at. Because sometimes they try something and not good, but they like it. So, okay, good, let's work at it. And so they tried a lot of different things. And the truth is, sometimes, like I had one daughter tried soccer, she hated it. I said, okay, just finish this season, you never have to do it again. I had a same daughter try gymnastics, loved it. I had another daughter try basketball. Every time they passed the ball, she ducked. She was afraid of the ball. That didn't work. Okay, but I couldn't say that's because she was a coward, because she went out for competitive cheer and she was the person they threw up into the air. Well, that's a much better chance of getting horribly maimed if that goes wrong. But she loved it, right? So my wildly diverse background and my list of accomplishments proves that trying something can lead to success in areas that I never thought would be possible. But it took trying it first to make it happen. So when you actually do try, there's two outcomes that you can get. One is you try and succeed, which is really great if you can do that. That's obviously what we all want to do. The other option is you try and fail, which is the best teacher and which leads us to success, even if the success wasn't in that area. You learn things from failure. Failure is your best teacher, and you don't fail if you don't try. So you notice in that, the other option of not doing anything is no longer an option, which is what you get when you do or do not. There is no try. You have the option of, well, we'll just do nothing. Trying is always better than doing nothing. And the reason people do nothing is they want to avoid failing. They want to avoid looking foolish. They want to avoid the anguish of not being successful and rejection and all that comes with it. But that's where you learn. So I'll give you a story here. There was a friend. He's a friend and associate. He's a former professional model and actor. He actually had a contract with a Wrangler, and he had just been cast in a sitcom, an action, like a comic action hero sitcom. And right before they started shooting, he got into a near-death car accident. This was about 16 months ago. He nearly died, and he shouldn't be dead, actually. He was in coma for a while. And then when he came to, he was kind of told by all the medical experts that he would never walk, he'd never talk, he'd never be functional again. Basically, somebody would have to sit there and feed him applesauce and change his diapers on a regular basis, and that's all he was going to be good for. But he decided to try anyways, and he slowly began recuperating and rehabilitating. With his first effort was teaching himself how to text with his left thumb so he could communicate with people.
Interesting.
Because he couldn't talk. And so each step that he made in that progress, he accomplished, the experts were amazed, but they kept telling him not to expect much more. So eventually, about 12 months after his near-death accident and being told he would never be functional again, he ran a half marathon.
Oh, wow.
And just this past weekend, he completed a Spartan race. Now, I don't know about you, but Spartan races are things I don't know that I can complete very well. And
Spartan
I'm
race,
Those are rough. Those are rough.
For sure, yeah.
So he's thriving today despite he has ongoing health issues from the accident, but it's just not holding him down. And he said to me when we were at the last fashion show, he came out as a special guest, and it was we had him there and featured him, and it was his first time to walk down a runway since his accident. He didn't think he'd ever be able to do that again. And he made the comment. He said, "You know what happens when you don't try?
Huh.
Nothing.
Wow.
And I think that's the best summation of it. What happens when you don't try is nothing.
Nothing.
So that's my long answer on how I feel about the word try. So.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great for sharing the story. I appreciate that. Gave a good picture on how that word try, and I've heard the three words together: try, fail, and adjust. It maybe sums up what he was saying. You know, he tried and failed many times, I'm sure, as he went along, but he just kept adjusting and making it happen. So. And
each time you try, you get a little stronger. And each time you try, you get a little wiser. And each time you try, you maybe garner a few co-collaborators along with you that'll help you next time. You end up gathering more resources for it. So it makes your chances increasingly more probable that you will succeed.
For sure, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like building more character. Everything, say, oh, well, why are we doing this? It builds character.
Yeah. And the truth is, a lot of things you try, you don't have to succeed at. You can try at it and say, you know what, this doesn't fit me. Like I say, like my kids with some of those sports, they tried. I don't like it. Well, okay, we tried it, and now you never have to wonder if you would have liked it or been good at it. Now you know. Let's move on to something different.
Very good. Great advice, too. And so that's with that kind of advice, the last question I have is something like this: is if you had a chance to put up a billboard, if you could put a billboard anywhere, what would it say, and where would you put it? Anywhere in the world or in the country, and what would you put on that billboard?
I'd probably use my tagline I have for my business, and that is, "Great leaders are built on solid foundation." And where would I place it? Probably in Washington, D.C., because that is a place that are full of leaders by position, but they have no semblance of a solid foundation from which to build any real beneficial or useful leadership. They like to deceive themselves into believing that they're leaders just by the positions they hold and the control they have, but their constituents overwhelmingly and poll after poll express their complete lack of faith in their ability to lead. So I don't, that to me, that's positional, the essence of positional leadership, with nobody wanting to follow your lead. So there has to be a solid foundation on which you build leadership from, a foundation of knowledge, wisdom, integrity. You got to build something on there, some kind of experience. You have to bring something to the party. If you don't have the foundation is what nobody sees. It's not the sexy part of the building. You put a lot of money into it, and nobody appreciates it, nobody sees it. But if you put all the money into the finishes and the window dressing and forget the foundation, then you've got a structurally unsound building, and it's going to be condemned and torn down in no time.
Right. That makes sense. Well,
that's why so many of these leaders fail in Washington, because they don't have a solid foundation.
Yeah, that's awesome. That also gives me a great picture on just people that I've either run into or met, and known some that were solid foundation. They get to where they're going, and they can continue to grow, and some get too far too fast, and they don't have that foundation, so they crumble underneath of that. And that's terrible.
The first storm that comes along takes them down.
Yeah. That's great, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions. I know for sure they're going to be valuable to people that want to hear this, and they're going to be able to glean out a lot of great information that they can use during their transition and during just any time in their life, everything you talked about. And so I just wondering, any last words or anything that you have for people that may be listening?
Well, the last words are zymes, zymosis, and zymergy. Those are the last three words in my dictionary, but I don't think that's what you wanted. So, no. Your audience tends to center around military personnel that are in transition. They're trying to work their way into the civilian world. And so I would offer them a few tips. Being someone myself who has hired and overseen hundreds of employees, and many of them are from military background. And I also served as a college dean of students, and I've worked with recently discharged military personnel that were training for new careers. And what I would tell them is take the time to know your own personal talents, skills, interests, aptitudes, previous education, experience, preferences. Take time to understand your purpose, your values, your vision, know who you are, and then look for positions or opportunities that fit you. Because your probability of success greatly increases if you fit where you're designed to fit. It's not always about the money you can earn or the contact that can get you a good position somewhere. You got your uncle who owns a company and they can hook you up. That's good. Maybe that's good as a temporary start while you're getting retrained or something. But if it doesn't fit you, that becomes frustrating. So I'll give you a little story. I was working as a dean of students, and there was a young husband and wife who were both attending together, and they were working towards a business degree. Of course, I like business, so I think everybody should do it and be good at it, but not everybody does. So the wife was excelling at everything in the program. She was a straight A student. The husband had failed his first 3 courses, and I was talking to him because he was on academic probation. He was in danger of losing his loans and his grants and getting kicked out. And so I talked with him, and I discovered he really didn't like or understand business at all. It was like a different language to him. And I asked him, I said, okay, so my first thought was, okay, you're not in the right program. And I looked at the other programs the school offered, and he didn't fit any of those. Yeah. And so I asked him, I said, if you could do anything with no consideration of earning money, no job security, no pressure, just what you want to do, every day you get up and you do this, what would that look like? And he said, I love working on cars. I said, okay, so why are you taking a business course if you like auto mechanics? And he said, well, cars are fun, and I like to work on them, but I have a wife to support, and we're hoping to have kids pretty soon. And he said, besides, the school here doesn't offer anything like that, so, I can't do that. And I said, okay, well, we're not a trade tech, but there are those out there. And so the first thing I let him know was that auto mechanics make really good money, and they're in pretty high demand. I know this because I've taken my car to the shop, and I know how much it costs, and somebody's getting paid. And cars continue to break down, right? So, and I told him, besides working on cars, it gets your interest, your natural abilities, your knowledge, your experience, and your temperament. You're not stuck in a desk. You're out doing things in a shop. And I said, you can actually do this, and you provide a very valuable service to people if you do it honestly and ethically, and you can provide for your family. And so what I did was I told him, I said, listen, I'm not supposed to do this because it's, not really what I'm supposed to be doing in my position, but you need to go down the street. About half mile down the street, there was a trade tech school. I said, you go talk to them. They have one of the most highly respected mechanic programs around. You don't sign up for anything. Don't do anything rash. Just talk to them and get the information, and you come back and you talk to me tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. And so he came back the next day, and he was just wide-eyed and excited, and he's telling me all about the awesome shop setup and the programs they have, auto, motorcycles, small engines, aviation mechanics. He's just all over it. And so I once we talked to him, I walked him into the college president's office, and I suggested, look, we probably aren't supposed to do this, but it's a competitive school, competing school, but isn't it better to release this guy's student loans and help him get moved over there than it is to watch him flail and fail, and now we have a failed student on our rolls that we couldn't get graduated, and that hurts our numbers. That's no good. It makes it look like we failed a student, and it's just not a good fit. He's a square peg in a round hole. So the president, she agreed, and so we helped him to move over to the other school. And so from time to time, I checked with his wife, who was still going to our school, and on his progress. And she told me she had never seen him happier. That she hadn't realized how much stress he was under for studying for something he didn't like and failing at it, not for lack of trying. And then all he had to look forward to was a life sentence working in an office that he didn't want to do. Right. And then she said, we found out that he's easily going to make about 3 times what I'm going to make when we graduate. Oh, wow. I said, well, there you go. So it all worked. So the moral of the story is know yourself and find out where you fit. That's the number one thing for these guys coming out. Just get to know themselves and what works for you. That's great. If you need a degree or you need a license certificate, go get it. Do the research. Do your education. If you need to go to an apprenticeship program, do that. Do what it takes and fit where you need to fit. And don't worry about how people view you based on your position or the kind of clothes you wear every day or whether you drive a truck to work or you drive a Mercedes to work. That doesn't matter. Fit where you fit, and you'll be able to provide for yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I can see how that fits a lot of people and how they, coming out of the military, can use that to their advantage to definitely make different choices than maybe they were thinking about before they heard something like this. So, again, I really appreciate your time and all the valuable information that you put into this tonight. And so people may want to get in contact with you. So what would be the way that you would suggest? What's the easiest way to contact you about, maybe finding out more about you or more about what you do and how your life is going? How would you say that would be the best way?
Well, the best way to contact me directly is probably go through my website, buildingsolidfoundations.com. It's all one word, all lowercase, and it's plural, buildingsolidfoundations.com.
Okay.
That's my company. If they want to check me out on social media, I'm at facebook.com/Stephen with a PH, facebook.com/StephenMatley1. They can check me on LinkedIn. My full resume is on there. They can check out some of my background. That's linkedin.com/n/Steve-Matley, and then here's the trick card, #0B359510. And they can also check on the nonprofit, IVBCF.com. It's Inland Valley Business and Community Foundation, IVBCF.com. And they actually just go to /board of directors, and they'll see my name. They can actually click my phone number. My cell phone is on there, as is my email address for that nonprofit. They can click that and get hold of me. I'm on Google+, so they can find me there if they search me. And if they're involved in anything to do with the real estate business at all, I'm also on ActiveRain. It's activerain.com/profile/smatley. So any of those will get to me.
That's great. Just fits your temperament as well. Lots of different ways to contact you. So
absolutely. Well, everybody's got different angles, and I've learned that it's not about what works for me and what's comfortable for me. It's about what works for the people I'm trying to get hold of and what's comfortable for them. So I personally am not I don't enjoy social media all that much because I'm naturally a fairly introverted personality. But the truth is, it's what the world we live in. And so you have to adapt. You got to, reach people where they are. That's the guys coming out too. If they're going to contact potential employers or different schools, they've got to sometimes step off, get out of their comfort zone and go to channels they're not used to going to.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Where's their target at, and what works for them.
All right. Well, thanks. And I'll put all these links in the show notes so that people can just easily click on those and get in contact with you. So again, I appreciate your time. It's very awesome and very valuable to hear what you have to say and helping people out and everything else. So I appreciate it.
Right, man, I appreciate you hosting me today.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd like to do a follow-up in a few months and just see kind of where you're at and, give you a follow-up and then let you know how things are going with, people listening to this and downloading and stuff like that. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks for your time, and have a great night.
All right. Thank you, Matt. You have a good night, too.
Okay. Thanks. Bye. All right. Well, this is Matt Disworth, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the guest today. All valuable, great information. Remember to tune in next week as we bring you another guest here on Life's Wealth Radio. It's my goal to offer you valuable information, so please comment below and let us know how you feel and what kind of information you're looking for in your transition. There's many people out there that have already transitioned or who are in a position that you may be looking to go to and could maybe benefit from some of their experience. Learn maybe on a curve, things that they learned through the hard way, maybe you can learn it through them. So take it easy, have a great night, and again, thank you for your valuable time, and tune in next week. I'll see you. Have a great day.